Buying your first ukulele or ukulele can be incredibly overwhelming in today's market because there's so much being sold online and in stores. There's just too much out there. I've made so many beginner's buyer's guides that has a lot of really good general information. Those videos are pretty broad in general, but here are some details to consider because looking at the details could either make playing very easy or very frustrating. So let's get into it. The first detail that people mostly gloss over is nut width. The nut is a small piece up here at the top of the neck, and the width affects how much space your fingers have between the strings. If the nut is too narrow, chords can feel cramped, especially if you have larger fingers or if you're coming from the guitar. So you do have to dig a little deeper when it comes to looking at the specs of the instrument, because if you look at a soprano, concert, or tenor, the nut width is going to be affected not only by the size of the instrument, but also by the company, because they vary. Case in point, these models are all considered tenor ukuleles, but dig a little deeper and you'll find that they are all different nut widths. A wider neck profile can make all the difference in comfort if you're thinking you're going to need more space. Next, look at the scale length. Scale length is the length of the fretboard measured from the nut to the saddle. And something many people don't know is that scale length can vary. Just because the ukulele is labeled as a soprano doesn't necessarily mean that all sopranos will be the exact same size or have the same scale length. And that's why it's important to check the specs of the models that you're interested in. Scale length affects the spacing between the frets and the tension of the strings. Like with many things in life, there are ranges. So for example, a soprano could be between 13 and 14 inches in scale length, concert 14.5 to 15.5 inches in scale length, and so on and so forth. Next, we have the action, and this one is huge. Check the action. Action means how high the strings sit above the fretboard. If the strings are too high, the ukulele may be harder to play, and your fingers may hurt more, and the chords feel harder than they should. If the action is too low, you might get buzzing. A beginner should feel like the instrument has a lighter touch, where it doesn't feel like they have to squeeze down to produce a clear sound, especially when you're just holding one finger on one string, which is your C chord, which is usually most people's first chord. So that can be a nice check there, but it's really hard when you're purchasing something online when you're trying to check the action, because you can't check the action online. You know what I mean? I mean, factories and stores, they do their best to set things up. Sometimes there can be things that happen in transit with whatnot. Nobody's perfect, no company's perfect, but it's best to go with a brand that has been around for a while, and then you have direct access to that brand so that you can talk to them with customer service and they get back to you in a timely manner. 2 is buying from a reputable store. Where you buy matters. Some stores, they set up for a fee. Some stores do a setup for free. So you just call, do your research. Like, do you do a setup? Is it free? If not, then how much will it be? Consider that into your price point, because that's really going to make a difference with your playing. Next, we have tuning stability. Pay attention to that. New ukulele string stretch, that's normal for a brand new uke to go out of tune a lot at first, but after the strings settle, it should hold its tuning reasonably well. Something to note is that a good ukulele will not take you forever to get the strings settled. That's something that should be said, because if it takes you forever to get the strings settled as a beginner, most of the time I find my students, they blame themselves, that they think it's their fault, and it's not their fault, it's really the instrument. So pay attention to that, just like how I said in the previous point about brand and store and where you buy. It really does make a huge difference. Next is intonation. An ukulele can be in tune when you play the open strings, but they can be out of tune when you go higher on the neck. One way to check the intonation, it's not foolproof and not exhaustive, is that if you tune one of the open strings and then you check the 12th fret, if it's way sharp or way flat, the intonation is probably off. And so it's, like I said, it's not exhaustive, but it's a way to test the intonation. If you do know some movable bar chords, it really does help just to check that intonation from the lower part of the neck to the upper part of the neck to see if there's a difference between the two. Like I said, sharp or flat. So that can be not an exhaustive way, but a way to quick check intonation. Now we have fret work. Check the frets. Run your hand gently along the sides of the neck. If they feel sharp or scratchy, that is not ideal. Sharp fret ends can make the instrument uncomfortable to play. Sharp frets could be a sign that it's been in an environment that's too dry for too long, or the fretboard hasn't been conditioned well. It's not a death sentence for the instrument, and the frets can be filed down and the fretboard brought back to life. but in some cases, it may be so bad that the cost of the repair may not be worth it. Here's a little bonus thing to look for is actually body shape. I mean, you have your figure eight with a cutaway, traditional figure eight. You also have just so many different sizes, but look at the width of these two. This is a thin body ukulele. So there are different perks and benefits to having like the larger size and also just the thin body. This by far has been one of my favorite ukuleles. And it's solid top spruce, mahogany back and sides. It's SKS 22E. I absolutely love it. It's so beautiful. It's so smooth. I love the tone of it. I've traveled with this before. It's one of my favorites. And I just love that little thin body right there. It just feels like it's so cozy up against my body. The body is definitely something to consider because they do come in different thicknesses and widths and shapes and sizes, and that could affect your playing. Now let's talk about tone wood. Tone wood can affect the sound, but I don't think beginners should choose an ukulele based only on the tone wood. Mahogany often sounds warm and balanced, which is the quintessential ukulele tone. Spruce can sound bright and clear. Koa is classic and beautiful. Solid wood can be more resonant and may open up over time, but it's generally more expensive. Laminate is usually more affordable, more durable, less sensitive to humidity changes. For a beginner, it can actually be a very smart choice. But really, the build quality matters more than the label. A well-made laminate ukulele can be better than any poorly made solid wood ukulele. Solid wood can be more resonant and may open up over time. Case in point, mahogany will get darker over time in color. Also, it will get richer in time with tone. So it's really quite interesting because my mom, she had her first ukulele, which was a 15 cm, and it's a mahogany instrument, and it has gotten darker over the years. And also the mahogany instruments that I have, and even my solid top spruce ones. It's just interesting because the tone has gotten deeper and the color's gotten deeper and richer over time. So it's really cool how that goes. Just that things just get better with age. Yes. Yes, tone wood is definitely something to consider, but you have to listen to sound samples and play one yourself, or just even strum open strings if you don't know how to play a chord at all. The goal is not to buy the fanciest tone wood. You just have to find the one that is going to be right for you. Something deeper, mid-tone, brighter. That's something to consider. Next, we have strings, and strings matter more than beginners realize. Different strings can change the tone and feel of the ukulele. If you buy a uke and it feels almost right but not quite, a string change can help. Don't judge everything by the first set of strings, especially on a budget instrument. Strings are kind of interesting. They're a relatively inexpensive way to change the tone of your instrument without having to break the bank. So a pack of strings could be anywhere from $5 to $15, maybe $20, but it's way better than buying a completely new ukulele. Sometimes when my students, they have a ukulele where the strings are just too stiff, they're like, man, what's wrong with this? I usually have them change to a fluorocarbon string, and then they play, or I bring some of my instruments along with me to my group classes, and I have them try some of my ukuleles with fluorocarbon strings, and they're like, a whole new world. It just feels softer. It feels a little brighter, just a little bit more shimmer. So switching over to a fluorocarbon may help. So instead of like researching, trying to find a new instrument, you may even save yourself even more money in the long run by finding the right strings for you. But that also leads me to electronics. You know, some people think like, oh, it has electronics, it must be better. Not necessarily. I mean, this one also has a pickup too. Pickups matter. I have a video that goes into a little bit deeper on details of the ukulele, of like pickups and the difference between pickups. I'm going to leave that in the cards above in the description box below, because there's more than one kind of pickup. And depending upon what kind of music you want to make, or if you actually want to plug it in or record or something like that, there is going to be a pickup that is going to be better for you depending upon your situation. All right, the main question to ask yourself is like, if I don't see myself in the next 3 years, or maybe even 2 years, plugging this in and playing and performing in front of people, you probably don't need a pickup. And the last one, which I think is very important, is return policy. I've been burned on return policies before because I just didn't do my research and I didn't think about the whole process of, what if I don't like this? But of course, you have it built up in your mind of like, of course I'm going to like this. You've been pining over this for weeks, and you're like, oh, this, and I could say the price. Okay, finally you pull the trigger, and then you get it, and you're like, this is nothing like I thought it was going to be. And then you go and return it, and it turns out it's $50 to ship it. I did that with a keyboard one time. Yeah, I got my initial money back, but then I was also out $50 more because I had to do the shipping fee. So really consider that. What is the return policy? Can it easily be returned or fixed? Or if something breaks on it, what is the warranty? That's why I really, I think it's really important to buy from a reputable store, because then there are people connected to the actual instrument face to face or phone call, and they're easily accessible to be able to get your money back and give you good customer service. That is incredibly important. And also, there are some instruments that I think have an expiration date where it looks fancy, it's got these really cool electronics and things like that. But then I think about, okay, but who's going to repair this? Is there somebody readily available to me that can repair this? And sometimes yes, sometimes no. You have to think about like, okay, what am I actually paying for? And am I willing to pay for like the future costs of it, whether it would be with your time to maintain the instrument or the extra funds to be able to maintain the instrument if it breaks. Let me know if there's some other details that you look for when you're purchasing an ukulele, or things that you wish that you had considered before you went to purchase an ukulele. Okay, leave that in the, not the description box below, the comments below, because I read every single comment. I try to respond to every single comment because my favorite thing about YouTube is you. But if you're new to the ukulele and you're like, I would really love a great starting point, I have a $5 mini course. It's called 28-Day Ukulele Kickstart. I'm gonna leave it over here. Like I said, it's only $5, and it takes you through 28 days of small, manageable practice sessions, not big, exhaustive things, just small, manageable practice sessions each day. By the end of the 28 days, you'll become more so of a confident beginner. It's all there right here on my Patreon. I also have a lot of extra perks there too. I hope you have a wonderful day, and remember, your worth is not in what you do. You are loved just as you are. Bye.